Empty outlines, a classroom assessment technique. Empty outlines, a classroom assessment worth trying. Come with me on a learning journey as I discover empty outlines in my own classroom. During my class, I presented my students a multimedia learning activity. There was a video, a lecture, and a slide deck presented. Before the learning activity took place, students were encouraged to take notes during the multimedia learning experience. They were informed that afterwards they would be filling out a blank outline without their original notes based on the information that we covered. Students were asked to keep their notes for further analysis later on in the class. After my lecture, students put their notes away. Recalling the information that they were just given, they were asked to fill out a blank outline. This blank outline was organized by topics, focusing on the key points that we had covered in the learning activity. The students were informed that this would help them assess their recall of the previous activity. This was in alignment with our objective of recall and recite. Students were given approximately 10 minutes to fill in the blank outline. Once students had individually filled out the blank outline, I broke students into groups of 4 or 5. Within these groups, they were given several instructions. The first instruction was to compare their guided outlines with each other. In a different color pen, they were asked to add to their outline as needed and seek further clarification on any information or new concepts that they were unsure of. This discussion lasted approximately 10 minutes. The next part of the activity was to take a moment and compare their guided outlines to their original notes. They were asked to individually compare for about 2 minutes and then share their findings with the group. They were also asked to add any information to their outlines as needed in a different color pen and seek clarification within the group of concepts that they were still unsure of. During this time, I was able to go group to group to provide feedback and clarification on the new information, as well as receive feedback from the students about how the learning activity went. It allowed me to have an overview of any concepts that maybe needed more time or if I needed to restructure my learning activity in any way. After the students were done this portion of the learning activity, they were finally asked to discuss note-taking strategies. As first-year students, this is an important tool that they'll need going forward in their academic journey. I asked the students to choose one strategy that they were going to use next class. During this time, I encouraged students to get any final clarification on any of the concepts we covered within this learning activity. Blank outlines is an activity based in intentional forgetting, where a student is taken out of their original learning environment and asked to recall information. This recall of information allows the students to strengthen their understanding and their ability to recall new information. This recall was in alignment with our objective, which created validity in this assessment. This recall, while on the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy, allowed us to build higher and higher up as we went through the activity, creating understanding. This will help us transition into our next lesson where we're applying the information that we learned. This activity provided valuable feedback for me as an instructor to see where I could improve upon. I found that there were some parts that needed consistent explanation, so I've added an additional video into my lecture to clarify that point a little bit better. It also allowed me to provide student feedback, both on their note-taking and on the information that they learned, so that they could see a path forward and knew where to focus. All of this was based in neuroscience, or the science of remembering. It created a learning community where students' emotional needs were taken care of. This is based on Maslow's triangle. If their needs are fulfilled, they're able to better learn and self-actualize. Overall, this learning technique was very effective, and I'll be using it in my teaching practice again. It allowed me to refine my learning activity by adding in extra information. It encouraged me to see the pacing of my learning activity was appropriate. It allowed me to provide direct feedback to students. It allowed students to self-reflect and self-assess. It also allowed for peer-to-peer assessment and feedback. This activity also allowed for scaffolding, where students were building on their own personal knowledge and sharing with the group. Students responded very well to this activity, and I feel confident going into my next class knowing that my students can recall the important information that we covered. This also allowed students to build their tools going forward in their educational journey. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you give it a try too.